Now, one of the things that I really get wound up about being a doctor and the owner of 6 dogs who are raw fed is when I hear people saying, oh, raw feeding's dangerous, it's an infection risk, and oh, you must tell your vets if you're raw feeding because you can be endangering them. There's actually pretty much no evidence for that at all. And I do feel a lot of this has come from kibble companies and people who have been trained by kibble companies or from their schools of nutrition in order to scaremonger people into feeding kibble. So my name is Dr. Helene. I'm an emergency medicine doctor, but I'm also a certified animal aromatherapy specialist, and I love to help people with an integrative approach to their health and that of their pets. So one of the things, now obviously raw food has got pathogens in it. We always need to maintain really good hand hygiene when we are handling meat. But that's the thing, we need to maintain really good hand hygiene when we're handling meat. Now, obviously, our dogs were feeding them raw, and someone actually said, well, what about their juicy raw meat breath? That's going to be a breeding ground. But what do dogs do during the day? They go around sniffing the ground, they eat feces, they eat dead things. Their mouths are already full of different pathogens. So the raw food isn't really making any difference there. The Raw Feeding Veterinary Society has got a brilliant statement that counteracts all this. And if you are interested in raw feeding and you are worried, or you just do go to that website and actually read their information on there so that you actually come from an informed place and you're not just going on the say-so of perhaps their influencers who subscribe to Purina, Hills, Raw Cannon, etc. School of Nutrition. I also wanted to go into this in a bit more detail and make sure I was actually giving you the proper information. So I got onto AI, Gemini, and I asked them what evidence there was for contamination from people who have been raw feeding their dogs. So let me tell you what it says. There was an E. coli outbreak in the UK in 2017. It was an outbreak of Shiga toxin producing E. coli, which was linked to raw pet food, specifically tripe. 4 people were infected and 1 person died. And studies do show that there's a significant percentage of commercial raw pet foods are contaminated with salmonella. So this is the problem, but it is all about hand hygiene. Let's just have a little bit of a deeper dive into this E. coli outbreak and the raw food contamination. Now, 2 of the contaminations were from the same supplier and it was sourced to the tripe. Now, there isn't actually any information about why the people were affected, but most of the time this comes down to hand hygiene and not following that. Now, I also have read previously in one of these people, they shared a toothbrush with their dog, which I wouldn't share a toothbrush with another human being, to be honest. So what about the fact that it might shed E. coli in the feces? Well, E. coli lives within us anyway. And again, it's hand hygiene. I have honestly lost count of the number of people who go to a buffet and then present to the emergency department with diarrhea and vomiting. Hand hygiene. If you are maintaining good hand hygiene, then you are not going to be putting yourself at risk or your pets. Now, again, we go back to the saliva, but like I said, your dogs are picking up bacteria in their mouth all the time anyway. But on that subject, let's just go back with Gemini and ask them about kibble. So just last year, there was a salmonella outbreak and it was linked to a specific lot of Victor brand High Pro Plus dry dog food. And then there was another one recall in Diamond Foods in 2012 as well, which was a major recall of 17 brands of dry food, dog food and cat food, which involved salmonella contamination. And 49 people were sickened with 10 requiring hospitalization. And there have been others as well. So the point I'm trying to make is just because you're feeding kibble doesn't make it inherently safer than actually raw food. And it all comes down to proper hand hygiene, washing your hands before you eat, cleaning up utensils. And I haven't got a dishwasher, but just washing them up properly in the sink. And before you eat, I wash my bowls, the dog's bowls up after I've eaten or separate water. But please do your research. Please look at the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. There is actually a position statement that is on the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and I'm just going to read out the introduction to it, and then you can go and have a look and actually read it. So benefit, bugs, balance and bones. These are 4 major criticisms of feeding a raw meaty bones diet to cats and dogs, as stated by the World Small Animal Veterinary Association in 2011, claiming harm to pets and pet owners. We, the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, strongly contest these criticisms, namely that there is a lack of evidence for the proposed benefit of raw food, that there is a threat of foodborne infection, that it does not offer dogs and cats a complete and balanced diet, and there is a risk associated with feeding raw bony material to pets. And they actually comment on a number of these areas in this statement so that you can make sure that actually you really get a balance of all the evidence available. But I just want to touch on one thing. Pets are a potential source of zoonotic infections no matter what they are fed. People may acquire zoonotic infections through bites, scratches, contact with animal saliva, urine and other bodily functions or secretions, ingestion of animal fecal material, inhalation of infectious aerosols, and through the bites of arthropods and other invertebrate vectors. So companion animals are a source for more than 70 human diseases. However, patient surveys and epidemiological studies suggest that the occurrence of pet-associated disease is low. So they go on to say that Salmonella, Campylobacter and Listeriosis are being carried by clinically healthy animals, whatever they are fed. So you cannot just label it from raw fed dogs. And they go on to say that basically basic hygiene precautions ensure that we are all safe no matter what we are fed. With raw feeding, it is really important that you get good quality food. There are very big differences between some suppliers and others. Some have much better quality meat and some have just crap. And if, in all honesty, if you are paying pence for a kilogram of meat, it is not going to be the good quality stuff at all. Please don't adhere to all the scaremongering. Do your research. And if you've got any questions, drop them below.